Well, hello everybody, it's Dean here, and I've got a special guest. I've got Willena Long, who is a technical recruiter from Roblox, joining me. But more than that, she's a career coach, and we share a common interest in LinkedIn for very different reasons, which I'm sure Willena is going to go into. So, Willena, do you want to just say a little bit about what a technical recruiter is and how you got into what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dean, for having me. It is a true pleasure. I am a technical recruiter, aka I am what we consider the gatekeeper between you as the applicant and me as the person bringing you into the job. So I am the shield between qualified candidates to the hiring manager and qualified candidates. I'm the one that's harassing you about joining a company or talking to me about a job opportunity.
Okay, and some people on here will know what Roblox is, and some because of their kids,
right?
And some people will have no idea. How did you get into Roblox? Is one of the big gaming businesses of right now, isn't it, really? And so
Absolutely.
You're constantly recruiting. No doubt you're fighting for candidates because of all of the great stuff you're doing, keeping our kids occupied. How is the recruitment market at the moment?
It is very busy. It is very competitive right now. Roblox is a gaming platform, very similar to how YouTube is, where people upload videos to YouTube. Because it's a platform, Roblox is a platform where creators can create games and put them onto the platform.
Wow. So now let's just spin this career coach that you do. How does that fit? Given that the jobs market's so challenging, you're a career coach, and I assume a career coach is somebody who helps people get themselves in shape for a new role. Yeah, whether that's
Absolutely.
mentally, CVs, all that stuff. Given the jobs market's upside down in that it's a candidate's market, why would somebody want a career coach? Sorry to be a bit prickly straight out of the bat. But...
No, great question. Great question. So I have been in the recruiting space for over 10 years now. I have supported some of the most well-known companies such as Facebook, Amazon, Uber, and now Roblox, as you mentioned. And along the years, I've noticed that some people are prepared and some people aren't prepared. The difference, I think, the lack that's in the market is people are not mostly properly prepared for interviewing. A lot of people think, oh, I'm a great interviewer because I interviewed at this smaller company and they hired me and things are great. But things are very different in big tech. The requirements are much higher. The market is much more competitive. Mm-hmm. Now, right now, we're in a unique perspective, as you mentioned, where for every one job, there's probably 10 candidates. Or excuse me, reverse that. For every one candidate, they have 10 job offers. Mm-hmm. So we also, of course, as a company, have to be just as competitive as the next guy, if you will. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean, however, that the standards have decreased from the companies. The standards are still very high. The reason the market is so competitive is there's still not enough people that are prepared and qualified for the positions. They're still not just going to hire anyone. So the reason I got into career coaching was because I noticed the gap that people weren't prepared. They weren't positioning themselves correctly. They succeeded in one interview, but not the other. Or because of how they positioned themselves, they were down leveled. So then they weren't interested in the position because it's a pay decrease or a title decrease because of how you presented yourself. So the benefit of a career coach is making sure that you're presenting yourself in a way that there is no confusion as to how you are the perfect fit for this opportunity and how prepared you are for the interview. I do a lot of mock interviewing with my clients so that they don't feel they don't have the same level of anxiety that a lot of people have when it comes to interviewing. Mm-hmm. They understand exactly what a recruiter is going to ask and how they want it answered. A lot of people go through interviewing rambling, and then they overshare because they get nervous, and then they talk themselves out of the role because they shared the wrong thing that the hiring manager was like, oh no, I don't think that's a fit, So I'm teaching from a perspective of preparation versus, just high level content, high level experience, because a lot of people, when they go into an interview, they're not diving deep into the conversation. And as you know, when you're interviewing with a hiring manager, you maybe have 30, 45 minutes, but at max an hour. If within that hour or 30 minutes, if you did not express exactly how you were fit for this role in detail, and they leave the conversation saying, oh, I like them and they seem nice, but I'm not really sure if they can do this job, they were too high level. I'm teaching you how to speak efficiently in a way that you can get your point across, that you are qualified for this position, so that the next person who does do it is not taking your job, because the job was meant for you. If they interviewed you, they wanted you, So
in that scenario, you could find then that there's people listening to this, and they're ready for the next level, or they want the next level, but they're just not in the right place themselves, that even though they're capable, even though they could probably do the job hands down, the packaging around them, the way they've presented themselves, just means that actually they're going to stay at the level they're at.
Correct.
And that can kind of reinforce the belief that maybe you can't do the job. If you start to get a number of people not take you seriously for a role, you end up going, maybe that role's beyond me. Is that a fair assessment?
It is. And the reason for that, and this is what I tell all of my clients, is that's why it's so important in how you articulate yourself in your resume and your LinkedIn. A lot of people think you need to articulate yourself in your resume for what you are doing. That's a misconception. Your resume needs to reflect the jobs that you are seeking, not the jobs you already have. If you keep positioning your resume for what you're already doing, you're going to attract roles that you're already doing. But if you're seeking advancement in your career, you need to speak that into your resume. What have you done that's beyond this particular title? For example, if it's leadership, even if you're an individual contributor, if you've led a project or a scrum or whatever the case is, talk about that, so that when I, as a recruiter, look at your resume or your LinkedIn profile, I see, yes, this person has been doing leadership things, so they do qualify for this position of growth. They just weren't titled it, because as we know, small companies, you wear multiple hats. So although your title may be engineer, you could still be managing various groups. Mm-hmm. It's just that's not the title you were given. So it's okay not to be where you want to be. It's just talk about where you're going and how you're already prepared for that.
And given we've had obviously 2 years of a very big shift in the way we work, we've got a new generation of people who think about work differently than, say, the older generation. The post-war generation felt very differently about work than, the work-life balance is far more taken seriously now than it was, and we live with better living standards generally. What do you think the challenges are for companies whereby perhaps you've got somebody who's of an older generation, wants to go into tech and isn't a cool dude, yeah. Or vice versa, you've got somebody who is maybe they've done a lot of work but have never gone into that corporate world? There's that like transition, because a lot of tech is it's big corporate in terms of size, but it's often not very corporate in the way it functions sometimes, right?
Right, correct.
How do you help people with those transitions?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mindset shift, of course, but you have to be flexible. A lot of these companies, from the big tech perspective, they're looking for people who can bring ideas, who can bring new ideas, fresh ideas to the company. So if you're coming from a small corporation and going into, where it's a very closed door policy, and then you jump into a big tech company that's open door company, open door office, all of that kind of stuff. We want to have your ideas. So we seek people who are going to bring that ideas. Now, from someone who has been, let's say, in a corporate stuffy environment for several years or decades, and then coming into a what seems to be a more younger generation of tech people, there's still there's still value in those senior experiences that you've had from your past, because you know what did work, what didn't work, and you can bring that to the table. So I think it's all in how you look at it, and believing what you bring to the table is unique to you from your perspective, but also beneficial, because these companies don't want to make the same mistakes, right? You'll notice a lot of the things that are happening are replicated by another company. So for example, you had Snapchat, who was doing 30-second videos that erased after 24 hours. And then magically, all of a sudden, you see Facebook doing it, and you see Instagram doing it. So they're all learning from each other what does and does not work. So the same comes from the people behind the brand. We're learning from what do you bring from the table. So level of confidence to come in to say, I have something to share, I have something to bring, is still going to be very necessary at whatever age you are, at whatever level you are, whether it be going to corporate or going to big tech.
And we were talking a bit earlier about a lot of what you're doing now is not just looking at applications, you're actually hunting. What would be some of the things, given that you're hunting for candidates, because that's the way the market is,
right?
What would be some of the things that you'd be saying to people that if you want to take that step up, how, other than obviously making sure, what are some of the things that they can be doing for themselves in terms of preparing themselves for that step up?
Yeah, so other than getting yourself a career coach, I mean, honestly, I think that's the biggest investment that you can make. A lot of people want to do certain things on their own. You don't have to do that. I'm not saying you have to hire a career coach. Lean in on your community, your friends, your family, or even your colleagues. I think the more you have an opportunity to practice, let's say mock interviews and things like that, the more you'll be comfortable in an interview and be comfortable with that next step. So first, I would say that's key. The next thing that's really important when you're joining a new company is do your due diligence and research the company. Don't just assume because it's a big brand that it's perfect. No company is, but you need to make sure that it aligns with your values. You don't want them to make this major move and then you totally disagree and your name is attached to this brand and it doesn't align with you. So make sure you're doing your due diligence. Looking at Glassdoor, for example, is a big company to tell you what are employees saying about this. What is the work-life balance from the employee perspective? Because every company, of course, is going to shine bright and say they do all of these things, but the employees are the ones that are really telling you the truth behind the door. So utilize those particular companies such as Glassdoor to tell you what is it like on the inside. Because I notice a lot of people accept a job solely based on it's a big brand. And then they realize because they didn't do their research, it's not at all what they want. Because sometimes these big companies, they offer so many perks, breakfast, lunch, dinner, all you can eat, whatever you want, whenever you want. But it comes with a price sometimes, which is your time. Right? And so if you have done your research, if you would have done your research, you would have known other people are saying the same thing. You know what I mean? So do your due diligence is very, very important. And then lastly, when it comes to the offer stage, a lot of people think your offer comes only when they're giving you the job. The offer actually the negotiation piece starts when they see your resume. That's why I put such emphasis on how you position yourself on your resume and your LinkedIn profile, because how you describe yourself is likely how I'm going to offer you. So if let's say you're looking for a leadership position, but you're currently an IC, which is an individual contributor. If you constantly talk about how you contributed or partnered or, helped, those type of buzzwords, that means I could probably lowball you because this is the first leadership position you've had. However, if you would have positioned yourself that you're already doing it, my numbers will reflect the difference. So you want to make sure a lot of people think you need to be humble in your resume and your LinkedIn profile. I thought the same thing. However, I realized, no, they're not. My partners that I did this project with aren't here. We're not both getting this job. I need to talk about what I did, how my immediate contribution helped this company, helped this project. So use this as the time to be arrogant in a way. Talk about how excellent you are. Don't be ashamed to toot your own horn, if you will, especially in the interview phase. A lot of people talk about, they get so locked in on, I need to talk about how I work well with a team. That's great, but I need a leader. I need you to talk about what did you lead and how did you guide this team to success? How did you work with cross-functional partners from a stakeholder perspective to get the team in order versus just constantly talking about we did this and we did that. They're not here. What did you do? So those are going to be probably the top 3 things that I recommend to people, even if you don't have a career coach. These are actionable things you can do now to make an immediate impact on your search.
And I think you raise a good point there, because when somebody's evaluating your CV, it's almost like they're viewing the extremes. Yeah. So sometimes I've done it. I've read CVs and they come across very neutral and very humble, but sometimes humble undermines confidence.
Right.
And you see it and you go, I'm not sure if this person can do the job.
Right.
Because there's not that certainty behind them.
Yeah. For example, I like to use this analogy. Let me ask you this. Have you heard of McDonald's?
Have I heard of McDonald's?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So McDonald's, I'm sure you've seen a couple of commercials. In every commercial, you see them talk about, this is the best new burger you ever seen. It's going to taste amazing. The pictures and the images makes you like, oh, it looks like it smells good. It looks like it tastes good. But we all know McDonald's is not the best burger, but they're not going to say I'm another good, okay burger, or I might make your stomach hurt later. All they say is I'm the best. So your resume should reflect I'm the best. Of course, there are other people out there that are doing the same thing that you do, but talk about how you are the best at what you do and how, if you had me a part of your team, it's going to be better as a result. You almost have to think of yourself as I'm the best. There, of course, across the street, there's another person that can do the same thing. Down the street, there's another person that can do the same thing, but that's not the point. You bring something unique to the table, and that is you. So own that experience, own that only you can bring certain things to the table that another person cannot, and believe in that.
Yeah. So when you're doing your hunting, actually, no, before I do that, I want to ask you a kind of another question. When somebody's being coached as in their role, I think actually it's quite good not just to have the career coach until you get the job. I think there's this window after you've got the job and you've settled in where everything's a bit unfamiliar and everything's a bit new, and there's power dynamics that you don't fully appreciate. And I remember a friend of mine a few years ago got a step up from a salesperson's job to leading the sales team job, different company. And for about 6-7 weeks, she was going through the dilemma of, I can't do this, I need to quit. Just because she knew she could do it. She knew she could do the job, but there was something in her about all the unfamiliarity, all the uncertainty, the not knowing how the land lies, that she wanted to quit. Do you see that? Maybe you don't see it, but do you hear a lot of people talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard it and I've personally experienced it. That's considered imposter syndrome. So you do everything right, you get the job. Woohoo, you get the job. But then once you start the job, you're like, oh my God, are they going to know? They think I'm a fraud? Do I really deserve this position? The bigger the company, the more you feel it. When I first joined Facebook, I felt like a fish out of water. You know what I mean? I felt like, oh my gosh, I got it, but there are thousands of people that work here and they all seem to look a little smarter than me. Am I supposed to be here? I mean, are they going to know that I'm not? It's a common thing that people feel. But to answer your question and your point, yes, your career, my job as a career coach is not just to get you to the very next position. First and foremost, when I work with clients, we're talking about a 10-year plan. Your career is a lifetime in most cases. Most people spend their life at their career, 20, 30 years, right? So I'm not just preparing you and leaving you once you've gotten the job. We work together for life if you choose it. And yes, you have that opportunity that let's talk it through. This is why the pep talk you need every day before work kind of thing. They want you. You belong here. You got this. Why do you think you're feeling this way? Let's uncover it, unpack it, if you will. And let's reinforce why you belong here. That's the key. You have to know that you belong in this place. They didn't hire you by accident.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's common to have the fear of, again, am I supposed to be here? Is this the right place? I don't know. What did I just do? It's great money, but I don't feel connected to certain things or people or whatever. But yes, that's why I think a career coach is necessary for life, not just for one role or one job. It's something that you grow with together.
And do you think then, thinking about that, do you think, you were talking about a career coach for life and a trajectory. How long does it take somebody to get into their swing in the new role, to really find their feet? Because I've heard some people say a couple of months, some people say a year. How long should it take for somebody to feel like, I've got this, I've nailed this, I own this space, I feel like I'm part of the furniture?
It really depends on what that role is, right? The higher the amount that you have to give as an individual, the longer it might take to experience that. At least 30 days, probably, to really feel like, okay, I feel like I'm bringing something to the table. I trust these people. Because it's also, do you trust your team? Do you trust the people around you? You know what I mean? And then, like you said, it could take up to maybe 6 months to a year. I don't typically see it take that long, to be honest. I would say 30 days, probably minimum, to maybe 3 to 6 months. But again, that depends on what is the position and exactly how much do you have to personally give.
Mm-hmm. So just a couple of other things. If you were talking to somebody now who was wanting that step up, maybe they've been in the current role a little bit too long. Yeah, because you can be in a role too long where it makes you so comfortable that it's almost mentally impossible to step beyond it.
Mm-hmm.
What would be some of the things, if somebody approached you, and I don't know whether you do this, but somebody approaches you and says, I've been in this role for, say, 10 years. I love the job, but it's no longer challenging me. And I want something more, but actually, I don't know what that more is.
That is my sweet spot. Those are the people that tend to attract to me most, because they're looking for a transition. A lot of people either feel stuck, in their position, but they're so comfortable. It's like you're snuggled into bed of your career, where you're like, it's so warm, I don't want to get out, but I really need to change these sheets, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, I really need to make this shift because I'm probably underpaid. If you've been at a company for 10 years, it's pretty likely that you're underpaid one. Or you've applied for these leadership positions and they passed you up again. And now you have to train your new leader. That nothing more ticks you off than you having to train your new boss that you just applied for that position. So a lot of people kind of see that as, you know what, this is the final straw. Change is a good thing. Change is a great thing. And if you're looking for that space for like a mental challenge to make you feel alive again, a lot of people think, for example, teachers say now, especially after the pandemic, I don't want to do this anymore. I just don't want to do it anymore. I'm underpaid, obviously. Everyone says that. But also now they've doubled the size of my classroom. The children in my classes are two levels behind because of the pandemic, right? They didn't have steady internet at home and their parents weren't working with them, and et cetera, et cetera. So now they have to teach 2 grades behind just to catch them up. And as we know in the school system, it's a grading system as a whole school, which means as a teacher, you're graded by your principal or your dean, whatever the case is. So a lot of people, there's a mass exodus of teachers trying to get the heck up out of there and do something else. It's not that you've lost the passion for teaching. It's just you've lost the passion for exactly this. So same thing in whatever role it is you've been doing for 10 years. It's no longer like, you can almost, I don't know if you've seen movies where it's like so repetitive, you just know you're about to drop that same cup of coffee every day. You know what I mean? That it's expected. So sometimes it is time for a change. And if this kind of feeds to you, then I'm talking to you, where it's like, it's time for a change. But I don't know how to get the change. So in my classes with my clients, we go through an exercise where we define what feeds you, what do you enjoy, what do you not enjoy, what is it that you're doing that can transfer into a whole new space. What cross-functional skills do you have where you don't have to relearn the wheel? I'm not trying to tell you need to reinvent the wheel here. Utilize the skills you have and put them into a new place where you can now expand your brain and stretch your brain into something else. So that is actually one of the things that I attract the most. People that have been in their space for 5-10 years, just got passed over for yet another promotion, and that was the last straw. They're ready to change, or they want more work-life balance. They've earned that. These are all the things I attract to, and I train specifically for the change that they need, what that transition will look like, whether it be into tech or whatever it is they want. We work together as a unit to identify and uncover what is that's successful. I can't say what it will be for you without knowing specifically what your background is, of course, but there is a program that I have put together that uncovers what possibilities you have based on what you're doing now.
And given the way the jobs market is, wherever you are in the world, I'm in the UK today, you're in the US, it's like employers want to find the right people, and the right people are in demand.
Right.
So that creates an opportunity for people who maybe have been in the same place for 5 or 10 years, that because people are struggling to fill roles, that actually you can step out probably more easily than perhaps pre-pandemic, when there was more candidates than jobs. I'm not saying because there's not enough people you can get a better paid job, but I am saying that actually.
Dean, you nailed it. Honestly, you nailed it. Right now is the perfect time to transition from one space to the other, because right now hiring managers are more open to people who come from a different background, and they're more open to saying, okay, I can teach them what they don't know, but the foundation that they already have is exactly what I need. So you're exactly right. Right now, hiring managers aren't saying they must have gone through this particular step-by-step career in order to be a fit for this. Now hiring managers are realizing people will zigzag in their career and do different things that aren't as aligned to what the norm would say, but they're willing to teach people because there's not enough people, and they just want the right person. They're willing to teach.
So let's flip this the other way and go, okay, what if somebody's looking to step up, but they've got a bit of a job hopping past? How would you help somebody deal with I've had 4 jobs in the last 5-6 years? How would you help somebody with that issue?
Job hoppiness is a big thing. Now 3 or 4 jobs over a 4-year period isn't so bad. It's 3 or 4 jobs in a year that's like, wait a minute, something's not right here. Now you're likely going to have a struggle there, because ultimately companies want people who will stick around. However, life has been happening to everyone right now in the pandemic. People know that layoffs are happening more rapidly than ever before. People are just having to accept these short contracts. So there is a way to articulate that into your LinkedIn profile, into your resume, to pre-tell that story, that this is why my contract ended. I was laid off. I was affected by this layoff. And that will circum the concerns of your hiring manager, who think this person is a job hoppy. This person isn't going to stick around, because no one wants to invest their time for you to leave.
Yeah.
So right now it's a place where a lot of people are experiencing that jumpiness, just because the stability doesn't exist, because the world is still shifting to get back to normal. So I would say it should not be a turnoff. Don't be fearful. Don't be afraid to apply just because this is your story. I would still apply, but just make sure when you have that conversation, or when you're putting it onto your resume, that you're talking in advance, laid off due to pandemic or whatever, or contract. They know that these are 3-month contracts, 6-month contract. That's normal, especially in the tech space.
And I won't How many people have you helped, or how many people use career coaches when they're trying to get the raise?
Several, to be honest. I would say people use coaches more than you think, because coaching, a lot of people are still kind of, what's the word I want to use? It's not as well known from a career coaching perspective, right? The coaches are everywhere. They're coaching in sports. There's coaches in our president has a debate coach, and your favorite football, soccer team, whatever, they have coaches. Why would you not have a coach for your career? You know what I mean? The level of success that an individual has by having a person that's literally whispering in their ear, what to say, what not to say, is increases your ability to gain more by, I believe it is 40%. This is an average based on some content that I've reviewed through the coaching. There's a coaching certification group. So this is by thousands of coaches all in one place. They're getting this data from. So I would say it's something that, if it were me, if I'm trying to get into a big tech company, for example, and I have not yet done it, I've kept trying to do something on my own, and I keep hitting this brick wall, it's time to get some help. You know what I mean? Yes, some people can do this on their own. I'm not saying you have to have a career coach to succeed, but if you're addicted to Googling, like a lot of us are, and you say, oh, I'm just going to Google my way to success. That same Google told you sneezed twice and you done caught something. You did. You're dying tomorrow. If you look at WebMD, everything tells you I'm dying.
Do you know what? There's a good point here, and I'll tell you a story. This is a number of years ago. I was approached by a company it was a kind of contract rather than an employment, but still it's the same thing. I was effectively working for this organization, and we'd had the kind of discussions about what would you bring to this, how would you solve this issue, all that kind of stuff. And then the conversation came about of, so it was a bit more polite than this, but it was like, so what's your number? Yeah. And in that moment, I made a fatal error because I chose the number that was valuable to me, and they said, done. And immediately I went,
shoot. They said yes way too fast. Yeah. I lowballed myself. Yep.
Yeah. And then I discovered, as I got into the company, and this made me really sick, that the people at my level doing my role were paid double that. And even though I knew that, I managed to renegotiate, but I never got anywhere near everybody else. But that was, I was coming from my own perspective. It was far more than I'd ever earned in my life. But sometimes you need people to challenge you on that, because you don't know, your own kind of biases and thinking screws you over when you come to the money, right?
Absolutely correct. And Dean, to your point, a lot of people are underselling themselves. I have not had a client that hasn't received minimum 30% pay increase, but most of the people I work with are receiving a 50% pay increase. And I'm typically able to almost guarantee that, because most people are underpaid based on what they accept. And a lot of people have this mentality of, well, they offered me the position, I don't want to ruffle any feathers, and I don't want them to take it away. A lot of people think if you negotiate and you come back to the table asking for more, that they'll be like, oh, never mind, I'll just get somebody else. That's not the case. We're willing, again, I'm a recruiter, so I'm going to put my recruiter hat back on and say, the number we've given you is with room to negotiate. If it's a salaried position, there's a guarantee that there's more that you can ask for, because we leave room for that. And the secret is, somebody asked me this in one of the Facebook groups. They said, how do you negotiate the offer or numbers? As you said, what's your number? It's almost like the Wild Wild West between you and the recruiter. Your objective is not to put a number out. Your objective is to get them to say what your number is. So for example, you would say, well, I'm sure you are a very competitive company. I'd like to learn a little bit more about the position before really understanding what the number is. However, if you have a range, I'm happy to hear it. And then that puts the ball back in their court without being disrespectful and saying, I don't know, you tell me.
You can't really duck that question then, can you? If somebody says, what's the range?
Right.
It's like, I'm either not going to answer you, which seems really strange, or they answer you and tell you the range.
Right.
And they give you a number, but then they'll say, yeah, but based on the right person, we've got some flex. And then they literally tell you you've got flex.
Right, exactly. So then you say, oh, well, I was looking for whatever that high end number was, because typically the high that they tell you is still probably about the middle. So again, I would say it's like it's having a poker face. Well, I'm not telling you until you tell me. And then sometimes they will say, oh, well, we don't know. It's based on experience. Okay, let's continue on in the journey in the interview process. And I'm happy to uncover what that is as we get closer and talk to the hiring manager. Sometimes the recruiter doesn't have that information. Most of the time they do, but sometimes they don't. So don't let that hinder you, but don't drop a number. That's my biggest advice. Don't drop your number, because again, like you experienced, you are stifling yourself in that offer negotiation. And the second you realize it, I'm sure the second they were like, okay, great, yes, you were like, you said yes way too fast. I
felt really ill in that moment. It was like, ooh.
Yep.
When you realize, and then, but the strange thing is, you never get to the place where you should have been. I'm not saying employers are unscrupulous, because I don't think they are. I think life is a negotiation, and we do it when we go to buy a car. We hold our cards to our chest because we don't want them to know how much we're prepared. It's just the way the world works. I heard a statement that whoever speaks first loses.
Yes.
And I was thinking about that, going, that's pretty much true of anything, really. Buying a car, negotiating a salary, negotiating a deal with a client, it's exactly the same thing. Whoever speaks first or reveals their hand first usually loses.
Right. And to your point,
loses in the sense of, one person.
But it is.
But there's always a compromise, and the compromise starts with the number you set.
Right. And to your point, Dean, once you have shown your hand, if you undervalued yourself, you're, like you said, you're never going to get to that point, and you're only going to be chasing typically 3 to 5% pay increases on an annual basis. Most of the time, the biggest raise you get is from leaving the company you're at. So keeping that in mind, that you need to always, if you decide I'm going to drop a number, make sure it's always at least $20,000 to $30,000 more than where you are now.
So on that point, what would you do if somebody asked you, what are you on right now?
I would say I'm $20,000 to $30,000 what I'm actually at.
Right. So you would just say it's more than what you're saying.
There's very little companies that are going to ask for your W-2 or anything like that to prove, but I would be reiterating my value that I bring to the table.
So if they said, what's your current salary? You could say, well, the salary I'm looking for is... Exactly.
Absolutely that. Because it's irrelevant. Who cares what I'm making now? What are you paying me? It's as clear as that. Doesn't matter where I came from. Doesn't matter. I might have started at $10 an hour 10 years ago. What are you paying me right now?
Yeah,
is what matters.
Okay. And one final thing, and then I promise I'll leave you alone.
Okay.
Prepping for the interview, and everybody says about the interview questions, right? Asking the questions in the interview. And I saw this guy on TikTok who gives some interview advice. And I just thought it was really weird. But those questions at the end of the interview, when I've done it, if people have really wishy-washy questions, it kind of sours the interview. Do you know what I mean? If I want people to almost signal they're all in with you before they even have got the job. So those questions, whenever I'm interviewing somebody, I'm always looking for, what are they going to say next? This is the bit where we really get something out of them. What would you be giving people advice if people were getting coached by you? What are some of those, and maybe you can't say, maybe that's your secret sauce or something, but what are some of those killer questions that will get an employer or hiring manager excited about you versus somebody else?
I mean, it could be any question, to be honest. Honestly, it's just the level of confidence you're presenting in the answer. The biggest advice I can give is to answer the question being asked. Mm-hmm. That's where you think that that's obvious, right? Answer the question. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people begin to ramble and then they talk too high level. If I'm asking you from a technical perspective, how would you build this platform? If you were building a messenger app or something, what would be the variables that you would need to know to build this app? I need to know what I'm looking for is specifics. What's the latency? What is the upload rate? What is the platform it's on? How old is the cell phone? Is that going to be a factor? I need you to get detailed. A lot of people think because they only have 30 minutes that they need to be high level and just give an overview. But these hiring managers don't know you. So you say, because they know what they're talking about, you guys can have a high level conversation, but they don't know you. So answer the question they're asking. And I rather say, here are the details. Would you like more? Does that answer your question? I want to be mindful of our time, but give details. That's the difference between you and the other person. Because most people, I kid you not, I've been doing this long enough to know, most people are giving high level answers, and that is the reason they're not getting the job. I'm in the debrief sessions, which is the sessions after your interview that I'm in with the hiring managers, and we're talking about you, and they're giving their honest feedback about what they thought of the interview with the whole panel. We're all on this call together. Their responses typically are, they seem like a nice person. They might be able to do the job, but they didn't give me enough meat on the bone, if you will. They didn't give me enough detail to tell me they could do it. But the next person did. So that's who got the job. So my best advice, my sauce, if you will, is give the answers being asked. Don't take it so high level. The analogy I like to use is teaching someone how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Every one of us know how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but I want you to tell me, get 2 loaves of bread, put the peanut butter on one side, put the jelly on the other side, then put the 2 pieces of bread together. That's the level of detail these hiring managers want, not just, you put a peanut butter and jelly sandwich together. So then I ate it, and it should be more detailed. I need to know from the ground up, what is it that it took to get to the sandwich? What was the ground up that you had to do to put this project together? That's the details I need to know. And that's how we also uncover how senior are you really? Because if you were an individual contributor, didn't really lead, but now you're saying you did, but you really didn't, there are certain things that you will know and will not know as a candidate. You know what I mean? So also pay attention to how much you fluff your resume. Some people will practically say they're the CEO of the company, and they're not. You know what I mean? Yeah. So make sure everyone adds a little bit of extra to their palette, if you will, and that's okay. But just make sure that you're not overselling, because they will catch it. Because we know the difference between, and that's how we level you based on how you respond. If you're more senior, you'll answer it this way. If you're a junior, you'll answer it this way. And if you're entry level, you'll answer it this way. It's just experience comes with that, and how you answer something based on the level that you're at. So just kind of also keep that in mind. And that's the benefit of doing mock interview training, especially with a career coach with a background such as myself, because I know exactly how the hiring manager is seeking you to answer that question based on the leveling. So I'm talking to you in a way, this is how you answer it more senior to get where you're trying to go, for example.
Yeah, so you can effectively see how that person's responding and going, no, don't answer like that. Mm-hmm. Because if you do, they're going to put you in this box.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas if you're going for this role, which is $50,000 more than where you are right now, you've got to answer it like this.
Yes, exactly. And I do a lot of the legwork for you. For my clients, I put together a kind of an entire workbook of this is what the company is, who the company is, their values, their morals as a company, what this job is, what they're looking for in this job. And then I'm asking, we do mock interviews where I am interviewing you with my recruiter hat on. So I'm asking you the questions that they're going to likely ask and do it just as I would as a recruiter. And then on the back end, I go over feedback on this is how you could have answered it better. Let's work on that answer. This is what you should have said or how you could have said it better. And then that opens your eyes, because when you're doing it for the first time, you're just like stumbling around like a baby giraffe learning to walk, and that's normal. Everyone goes through that. But once you've started practicing, that's when you're like, oh, I'm prepared for this. I know exactly how to answer this. Or you've had time to reflect on how to improve your answer the next time and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So this, I have to say, I mean, when you think about it, the journey people have got to go on and convince, we're actually in the same job. Although I help people get clients, you help people get hired. Mm-hmm. We're actually doing the same thing. We're convincing people that that person is the right choice. Mm-hmm. So, we're kind of in the same space. But if somebody wants to work with you or somebody wants to talk through how you can help them, what's the best way? Where can they find you? I'm assuming it's LinkedIn, right? Given you're also a technical recruiter. So you're on LinkedIn.
Yes.
So I'll put, wherever people are listening, I'll put your LinkedIn URL in so that they can find you. But what's the best way for them to engage with you? Is it email, message you on LinkedIn? How would you, if somebody says, I need to work with Willena, she's convinced me I need to sort this out and get myself on track and get the pay that I'm worth. What's the best way to talk to you and engage with you?
If you're on LinkedIn, you can message me directly. But a lot of you may not be on LinkedIn, and we'll fix that after we start working together. But you can message me on coachwillena.com, and you can schedule a free consultation to apply to work with me. I don't work with everyone because I want to make sure that we both set ourselves up for success. But you can apply to work with me and schedule a free consultation at coachwillena.com.
Awesome. Willena, this has been fab, and I really appreciate you giving me the time. It sounds like a really interesting world, the jobs market right now. Mm-hmm. I think navigating it definitely needs some support and some understanding of the way people are thinking about stuff now. So thank you for joining me. And guys, thank you for joining us on this episode. Do go find Willena on LinkedIn, and don't forget to find Willena on her URL, which is
coachwillena.com.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thank you.